It's starting. And we are live on YouTube. I'm going to make sure we are live. It says live. Yep. Okay. Just going to minimize this. Present to everyone. Awesome. So we're going to be doing a book launch webinar, and we are going to be looking at the Book of Esther. We're not going to be looking at everything. Just one piece of it, one layer of it. Esther, the queen, Esther Hamalka. The Book of Esther is a very interesting one, and usually, most of the time, when we read it as a child's tale. We don't read it from the perspective or from the view of an adult. And I want us to do that. In writing this book, that was the goal. Let's look at this interesting scroll from the eyes of an adult. And I think we were able to produce a material that does just that. And I want to focus on one teeny, tiny little bitty aspect of the Book of Esther. When a woman's position is disrespected, that is how I titled the flyer. When a woman's position is disrespected. Trying to write a summary for the book, it took me a while because I was trying to see, like I've always said, if you cannot summarize a book in the Tanakh, if you cannot summarize it and give us a summary of it, then you haven't really taken time to really study it. So it took me a bit to just sit down and figure out what would be a summary for the Book of Esther. And I think we hit it on the head when we came up with a summary. But today, I want us to look at something. At the back of the book, I wrote, the Book of Esther can easily masquerade as a child's tale. We know that there is a villain, Haman, who is out to hang Mordecai and murder his countrymen. We have a king, Ahasuerus, who enjoys drinking and seems to not be in control of himself or his realm. And then there is a beautiful and noble queen, Esther or Hadassah. And, it's an interesting book. You can make a movie out of it. There are assassins, there are palace intrigues, and a climatic battle scene in addition. And then we have this very happy ending. But usually this looks like a child's tale, like I said. But today I want us to look at it from an adult's view. let's present it from the worldview of an adult. And we'll see that the story will begin to reveal itself to adults who are patient readers and who are willing to ask questions, a lot of questions. I've always said in studying Tanakh, you want to ask a lot of questions. You want to put yourself into the narrative and then look around, see who is doing what, who is hearing what is being hidden from who, all this stuff. And then you will notice anomalies, which actually forces you to pause and find out, why are you telling me this? Why is this omitted? We're going to do just that today, to bring out another layer of the Esther story, Esther Amaah. I'm going to ask some questions that bothered me during the commentary. The questions may seem obvious, but they hold the key to unlocking some of the great mysteries in the scroll of Esther. Question number 1. Why did the scroll include at the beginning the story of Vashti, the queen? 1 second. Why did the scroll include at the beginning the story of Vashti, the queen, and her party, and then the punishment she subsequently received? Why do we care about that? We could have simply missed out this detail, as the focus that we know is on the king getting a new wife, the king getting a new queen, and not really on the details of the old wife. No. Why Vashti? Why is the story of Vashti, why is the insertion of Vashti relevant to the whole story? Number 2, why does Esther think that she would only be able to change the mind of the king at a wine party? Number 3, why did she invite the king to both parties and not make the whole revelation at only one party? So we have 3 questions here, and trying to answer these questions opens up the book of Esther to a whole new dimension. So in order to answer all these questions with one basic idea, one of the ways of studying Tanakh is recognizing throughout the scroll that there are certain keywords that appear over and over again. When you look through the 10 chapters of the book of Esther, there is a particular keyword that appears over and over again, and we're going to chase that keyword. The use of or the omission of this keyword in certain places in the story will give us a new and deeper insight into the whole story. Okay. So those who the Kingdom of Kings scholars on here already know the technique, and we're going to chase it. So pay close attention, because I'll be asking you if you see something unique and when it changes. Background. We are introduced to King Ahasuerus, and we are told that in those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the capital, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a banquet for all his princes and his servants, the army of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces who were before him. So for 6 months, Ahasuerus holds a party in which he invites all of the region's politicians, all of their military officers, and all of his financial backers. This party comprises of the who is who and the big shots of his kingdom, and why this party he's trying to show off. We go into details about the party in the book. He did all this to win the loyalty of the people whose commitment he would need the most. So King Ahasuerus throws a party for 6 months. We are then told in verses 9 that also Vashti the queen made the banquet for the women in the royal house of King Ahasuerus. So the men gather with the king, the women gather with the queen. This is a foreshadowing of things to come. And this second party is going to get very important soon. I want you to pay attention to how Vashti is addressed. She's addressed as Vashti, the queen. Very important phrase. Verses 10. On the 7th day, when the king's heart was merry with wine, he ordered Memuhan, Bitsatha, Habona, Bigtha, and Abaktha, Zitha, and Carcass, the 7 eunuchs. Let me pause and talk about that word eunuchs. A eunuch is somebody who serves the head of state or the king. They're very important people. So you're having a party, an all-women party, and then 7 important people in the kingdom walk in. Everybody's going to pause, and they're going to turn around and find out what is going on. Are they going to review something? Is this a surprise? What is going on? So everybody turns. Now, the king is asking them to bring Vashti, the queen. Do you need 7 ministers doing that? You can just send the messenger, or just one of them, or maybe 2 of them. Why 7? The king is at the apex of everything. At this point, all the goodwill, the strategic alliances that the king is trying to cement comes to an head. On the last day of the all-inclusive feast, we see the climax of the king's intentions. And to top off the said apex, the king makes this request: bring Vashti, the queen. Awesome. So they come to bring the queen. Notice, when they walk in, they did not come and speak into Vashti's ears. 7 men stood at the party, and then they said what the king had requested. What was their request? To bring Vashti, the queen, before the king with the royal crown, to show the peoples and the princess her beauty, for she was of comely appearance. That phrase, the royal crown, is redundant. If you ask Vashti to come, she's having a party, a state party. Of course, she's wearing the royal crown. What do you mean we should bring Vashti, the queen, with the royal crown? What is going on here is that Ahasuerus is asking her queen, Vashti, to come in front of all these people in this all-men exclusive party wearing only her crown. She's supposed to come naked to show her comely appearance. This is not said in private to her hearing only. 7 men coming to an all-women's party for the wives of his leaders in the empire. So it's very disrespectful, disgraceful, disrespectful. Just as it was said publicly to the hearing of all the women at this party, Vashti also refused publicly. Verses 12. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's behest. which was brought by the hand of the eunuchs. And the king became very wroth, and his anger burned within him. She's being required to come out in the nude in order that the king could show her off. And she refused. Keep looking at how Vashti is introduced. Vashti, the queen. When that outrageous request is made, see how the text changes in verses 12. But Queen Vashti, the queen, is put first. She took her position as the queen of the empire and refused the king. This is a woman of authority. She understands her right as the queen. The queen is not a concubine. You want women to come and show themselves off under your party? Sure, you can go get your concubine, not the queen of the empire. You have to respect that position. So verses 12, the text makes sure to emphasize that by changing Vashti the queen as she's been addressed since verses 1 to 2, Queen Vashti. Bring the queen first. No, it's not happening. Awesome. The king is angry. The king doesn't know what to do. And pay attention, Vashti doesn't lose her head. You think that she would lose her head, but she does not. We know the story. I won't go too much into details. So the king comes and finds out, okay, what can be done to Vashti? According to the law, what shall be done to Queen Vashti? Now you notice, it was Vashti the queen. Now, because she's taken her stance as the queen, they've brought the queen first before her name. According to the law, what shall be done to Queen Vashti, inasmuch as she did not comply with the order of the king, brought by the hand of the eunuchs? One smart person, one of the people that I like in the Book of Esther is Memucan. Memucan is very smart. Then Memucan declared before the king and the princes. If you read the book, you will know why I say he's very smart. Then Memucan declared before the king and the princes, not against the king alone has Vashti the queen done wrong. Now it's changed back to Vashti the queen, okay? But against all the princes and all the peoples that are in all of King Ahasuerus provinces. So it's not only the king that she's offended, she's actually offended all the men. So Memucan is going to advise that we should take a stance for the dignity of the man. 17, for the word of the queen was spread to all the women to make them despise their husbands in their eyes. When they say, King Ahasuerus ordered to bring Vashti the queen before him, but she did not come. And this day, the princes of Persia and Media, who heard the word of the queen, will say the like to all the princes of the king, and there will be much contempt and wrath. Like I said, she refused publicly. So this is a public event. It's not private data. It's public information. Okay. Now, we see what's going on. We have noticed from verses 1 to verses 18, anytime Vashti is addressed, she's addressed as Vashti the queen. We see that in verses 9. We see that in verses 11 to bring Vashti the queen. We see that in verses 12, but Vashti the queen. We see that in verses 15, Queen Vashti, the second line. We see that in verses 16, the third line, Vashti the queen. We see that in verses 17, the fourth line, to bring Vashti the queen. So we've seen that anytime Vashti is mentioned, that title is attached to her. A very powerful title, very powerful position. Memucan is still advising, if it pleases the king, let a royal edict go forth from before him, and let it be inscribed in the laws of Persia and Media, and let it not be revoked. that Vashti shall not come before King Ahasuerus. What changed here? What changed in verses 19?
I think
Madam Cynthia, I think you muted your mic again.
I did mute my mic, but I'm just trying to because my daughter keeps on crying, making noise. So I'm trying to I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. Okay, I'm reading the chat in the on the screen.
She's not the queen anymore, Rabbi.
She's not.
It's just Vashti, no longer Vashti.
Awesome.
I mean, saying that.
Yes. So now we notice that when she is demoted, the title or the position queen is removed from her name to signify that. Memucan says that if it pleases the king, let a royal edict go forth from before him, and let it be inscribed in the laws of Persia and Media, and let it not be revoked, that Vashti shall not come before King Ahasuerus. The title queen has been stripped because she has been let go. We are not told that she lost her head. That will be what you would think would happen to a queen who disobeys the king like that in public. But we see that Ahasuerus doesn't do that. She is not killed. We're not told what happened to her. She's just dethroned. And you see that. From here on, anytime Vashti is mentioned, you see that that position, that title is removed. After these events, when King Ahasuerus' fury subsided, he remembered Vashti without the queen. Verses 4, and let the maiden who pleases the king reign instead of Vashti. Her title is gone. Verses 17, and the king loved Esther after Esther had won the pageant. And the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor before him more than all the maidens. And he placed a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. So throughout the scroll, the key word that appears over and over again is Hamalka, the queen. The use of or the omission of this keyword in certain key places in this story will give us a new, deeper insight into the whole story. That is the power of that word, queen, or Hamalka, the queen. Now we've established the power of the word Hamalka, and now we can move forward to Esther's struggle in coming to terms with this title and the implications it carries. Let me repeat that. The power of the word Hamalka, we have now established it. Now we're going to move forward and look at Esther's struggle in coming into terms or to terms with this title and the implications it carries. Esther Hamalka. The king's young men, his 7 eunuchs, those who serve the king, those who see the face of the king, because the Persian kings, you cannot see their faces. They were semi-deities. They advise in Ahasuerus, and they say something quite interesting here. And the king's young men, his servants, said, let them seek for the king young maidens of comely appearance, and let the king appoint commissioners to all the provinces of his kingdom, and let them gather every young maiden of comely appearance to Shushan, the capital, to the house of the women, to the custody of Hegi, the king's eunuch, the keeper of their women, and let their ointment be given them, and let the maiden who pleases the king reign instead of Vashti. And the matter pleased the king, and he did so. I want you to put on your hats of monarchy, kings, how they rule, how they choose wives. What is wrong with this advice given to the king, which he goes with? What is wrong with this picture? Any ideas? Danaya said he could marry a foreigner. That is true. Yes. Beauty is not a good way to judge the character of a new queen. Thank you, Madame Hutchison. Sorry, I was going to butcher your first name. Any ideas? There's something very wrong with this when it comes to monarchy. Okay, because we don't have that much time. It is suggested here by the young men of the palace to gather girls, irrespective of their backgrounds, and bring them to the palace on the basis of their beauty. This is quite an unusual path because ordinarily, queens were selected based on political benefits, associations, treaties, and bonds between kingdoms, and not through a pageant or a trial. Thank you, Madame Benedette. You don't choose queens using a pageant. Especially in those days, queens were selected based on political benefits. It has to have a political benefits. It has to have like political associations because of treaties, bonds between kingdoms, and not through pageants. What will happen, not to the king, but to the woman who is picked to be queen through a pageant? What are the difficulties that she would face?
Well, hello, it's Cynthia here.
Madam Cynthia, yes.
It's almost like you're inferior because it's like from royalty, it's like your line, your bloodline as well.
Yes.
And also, there's another thing about that bloodline, I think, as well. Because sorry, I'm a student of history and I write reading stuff about royalties and stuff.
Yes.
One of the things that you get when you're coming from a bloodline of royalty is that you get protection.
Yes.
So your brother could be the king of another kingdom.
Yes.
So if you get married off to another king and he mistreats you, you've got like a backing that can come in and deal with him.
Yes.
And he has to kind of watch what he does.
Yes. Awesome. That is why Vashti, you see, we're not told in the text that Vashti anything did to her was done to her. Where does Vashti get the authority to refuse the king of Persia? Because she's got royal line. You don't just treat me like that. She's got a backing. Wars are fought because some other king treated some other king's daughter badly. If you go and you choose a queen without that royal blood through a pageant, the queen is going to face some difficulties. Lack of respect is one. The idea that I made you queen. You see, Vashti was a princess and then she became a queen. You did not make, she was born royalty. So you can't stand and hit your chest and say, I made you queen. Not in her life. But if you do that through a pageant, now this queen becomes a puppet. Just an item. Beautiful item that you can boss around and do what you want to do with her. So, The inference of such an action is that let's get a queen that you can control, unlike Vashti, who knew her rights as queen. We don't want another Vashti. We don't want that scene to happen again, where there is public disgrace to the king.
Hello, Brother Basil.
Sister Cynthia.
Yes. Cynthia. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I know they're saying that it's a public disgrace, but you have to remember that she came from a royal line, a royal blood. She was brought up a certain way.
Correct.
You know, and I just don't expect her to just take any old thing, you know? Yes. Another thing was, oh, sorry, you gonna say something?
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you.
Oh, no, I was sorry. And the other thing is that it might not necessarily be like her alone that he's disrespecting. It might have reflected on her family as well to do certain things.
Yes, correct. Because you cannot have your daughter being portrayed naked in front of the king's political hacks and his financial backers. No, you don't do that. That's a disgrace to the other kingdom. See, so this is what's going on here. This is going to be Esther's dilemma.
Rabbi.
Mother Margaret.
How are you?
I'm good, Mother Margaret.
You know, we focus a lot on Vashti, which she's already, she's exited to, she's not there anymore on the stage.
Yes.
Then I'm reading the text and it says, in 4, it says, and let the maiden who pleases the king reign instead of Vashti.
Yes.
And Esther, we see right there, it wasn't Esther's choice.
Correct.
Right? Yes. Right. They have the maidens there and he picked one, she looked good to the eyes and he just picked Esther.
Yes.
But then what a powerful story that is. It's almost like Esther was ordained, was anointed for that position. Yes. Because even if Vashti has all this backing and royalty, look at what Esther did. It's amazing, that story.
Yes.
So even if all this royalty is good, but when you are appointed and anointed for something, it's even more powerful. And that's where I see Esther on that stage. That's where I view her.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that addition. Awesome. Okay, let's move on. So then the task is set to find a new queen. The king is determined not to have another Vashti who has royal lineage. And he's looking for a queen who will be beautiful to look at, but no more than that. She will listen to his commands without reservations and have no personal aspirations beyond those of pleasing her husband, which is Ahasuerus. So they go looking for these young women. Read if you get a copy of the book, when you read it, you see the ages of the women, why he went for those ages. I won't focus on that now. And he had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther. So we introduced now to Esther, the person who's going to be key in this narrative. We're introduced to her. First, we introduced to Mordecai, and then we are being told that Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. She has no lineage. Awesome. And the maiden was of comely form and of comely appearance. And when her father and mother died, Mordecai took her to himself for a daughter. So the person who won the position fits perfectly. When it comes to beauty, she qualifies. She fits that requirement. Now, when it comes to lineage, she has no father, no mother. So her lineage also qualifies her, because if you're looking for somebody with no lineage, somebody who doesn't really matter, that is your best choice here. Okay. Put that in your spirit. Verses 10. Esther did not reveal her nationality or her lineage. Why the emphasis on her lineage? Is there something about her lineage that we have not paid attention to? She just didn't hide that she was Hebrew. She also hid her lineage, the line that she comes from. Put that in your spirit. We usually read too fast. It's two things that she is not telling Ahasuerus, or the text is telling us that she hid. Remember, we don't want anyone with royalty, because that will be another Vashti. Awesome. We want somebody who's beautiful. Awesome. We get a candidate. Her name is Esther. Her parents are dead. She's Hebrew. She doesn't say it. But one thing too that she doesn't say or reveal is her lineage. Well, look at her lineage, see where she comes from. Put that in your spirit. So she's presented as an orphan. She has no father, no mother. The king chooses her. But when he makes the celebration party for Esther, look at something very upsetting. 17. And the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor before him more than all the maidens. And he placed the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. 18. And the king made a great banquet for all his princesses and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he granted a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the bounty of the king. What is missing here? Look at verses 19 too. And when the maidens were gathered a second time, and Mordecai was sitting in the king's gate, Esther will not tell her lineage or her nationality, as Mordecai had commanded her, for Esther kept Mordecai's orders as she had when she was raised by him. What is missing? Mr. Drew says the title queen. She has been chosen as queen. But she's not given that title in the text. What is Ahasuerus thinking? Madam Cynthia, you wanted to say something? Yes, go ahead.
There's something else, Brother Baz, that I find really interesting. That's very interesting. There's another thing that sticks out to me, which is like she's still keeping the orders of
Mordecai. Yes.
Yeah, because she's a married woman now, essentially.
Yep.
So when you get married, you kind of move on, but it's almost like she hasn't moved on, like from Mordecai's sort of influence.
Influence, correct.
Yeah. And it's very, to me, it's a bit odd, It's odd in the sense, not in a, I don't know, it just stood out to me. It just seems sorry, everybody.
No problem. And what you're saying is very key. And she's not just married, she's married to Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus was it at that time. So she stands on a level way above Mordecai, but she's still listening to the dictates of Mordecai because it's important. Okay.
Rabbi?
Madam Margaret.
Hi. But could it be it's because Mordecai, because he was the one who raised her, because she didn't have parents?
Yes.
She was orphan. Could be maybe respect.
Yes.
I could see her being humble.
Yes, humble. Yes.
Yes. I could see that in there.
Yes, she was very humble. She was very humble. Yes.
Sister Margaret, I think that I'm not disagreeing with you in this respect, but I have to just be honest here. But it's not about humility. I think there is meekness that needs to be involved in this, because ultimately she's still a married woman. Okay. And that's her husband. Her husband is the king. And I'm not saying that she needs to disrespect Mordecai, but the emphasis of the fact that she's still, it's almost like she wasn't married. That's when I read that text, it comes across that it was either she didn't feel married, or it wasn't. It wasn't. I don't know if it's insecure or she hadn't let go properly. I can't explain it to you. I don't. I'm using maybe the wrong terminology, but there is something in it that I see, and when I read that text, comes out to me, which is, it wasn't about humility. There was something there that she was married to the king, but she wasn't married to the king. I can't explain it really.
No problem.
Sister Cynthia, I'm just thinking of background. That's all. Just background.
The background, yes. I think I answered that question because it changes. It changes around. One of the chapters when Mordecai tells her that it's time for her to show herself, you see that it changes. She takes the front seat and she starts now commanding Mordecai, telling him what to do. So she does that for a bit. And the reason, get the book. I answer all these. I knew Cynthia would ask that question, so I already answered.
I have a question.
Yes, madam.
This perspection, how is the Book of Esther? Is it Esther talking about her, or it's someone else who's telling the story?
Traditionally, we are told that was Esther and Mordecai that wrote the text.
Okay, so this is her, because when she's talking about herself, Esther, she didn't say Queen Esther, so maybe she was not in that position yet. She doesn't, how can I say that? The decision was made up, maybe.
Yes, so the moment that she was chosen, she won the pageant, that is when the title kicks in. So she's now queen. And then they made a feast, and then they named the feast after her. Yes, and then you will see, because of your question, you will see that in verses 19. Is it verses 19? Let's see. Verses 22. And the matter became known to Mordecai, and he told it to Queen Esther.
Oh, okay.
So everybody, including Mordecai, accepts that she's the queen. But look at what happens. She's introduced as Queen Esther. But anytime it has to do with Ahasuerus, the title is removed. Look at 22 carefully. And the matter became known. So let me give the background here. You had two people that were conspiring to poison the king. And the matter was made known to Mordecai. So Mordecai comes and tells Esther, and Queen Esther. And Queen Esther is supposed to break that news to the king. But we notice in 22, and the matter became known to Mordecai, and he told it to Queen Esther. Mordecai addresses her, sees her as queen of the realm. But look at when it says, and Esther told it to the king. Anytime it's got to do something with the king, the title queen, Amaah, is removed.
That's very good.
Correct. Yeah. Because in his mindset, he's the one that made her queen. She's not queen by blood. She's not a princess by blood. Somebody we took from the street who won a pageant, and now she is sitting on the throne. I made her who she is. So when it comes to his interaction with Esther, is always Esther without Amaah, without the queen. Everyone else would address her as the queen, but not the king.
Hello, Brother Basil. There's another thing I want to say is that wouldn't Esther felt really, really uncomfortable as well, because she would have known that what's happened to Queen Vashti, and as a woman, you'd feel a bit insecure, wouldn't you? Really, because if she could be disposed of, then you could be disposed of quite quickly. And
correct. Yes, it's not a very good place to be. That is why, if you read the text carefully, when we're looking for the women did not voluntarily come to take part in the pageant. No, they went taking people. So it was a by force pageant. It wasn't willingly. Okay, nobody who wants to be Vashti, who wants to be in Vashti's position, nobody. But they went around gathering the women who fit the age range, and Esther happened to be amongst them. Awesome. Yes, please go ahead. Okay, I think she did not want to say anything. Awesome. So we get in how things are going here. Let me get back to my slide. So continuing, when Esther is on her own or with Mordecai, she is called Hamarka, the queen. Her title of Hamarka is noticeably absent when it comes to the king, to show his acceptance of her on his terms. I made you queen. We just took you from the street. Okay, Haman's decree has now been made, and all of Shushan is in mourning. Mordecai tells Esther that this is the time. The time has finally come to reveal to the king who she really is, so that the decree can be annulled. And it came to pass on the third day. So Esther has gone back and forth with Mordecai. She doesn't want to take the job. Mordecai says, this is why, maybe this is why you became queen. This is why you took that position. So, let's make it happen. And then she says, okay, let everybody wear sackcloth. Let everybody fast. And I'm going to fast with my crew. And then I'm going to go before the king. She comes before the king. And now read carefully, because things are going to change. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther clothed herself regally. I like that word. And she stood in the inner courts of the king's house, opposite the king's house. And the king was sitting on his royal throne in the royal palace, opposite the entrance of the house. What does it mean that Esther clothed herself regally? Does it mean she was wearing royal clothing? Look at it carefully. She clothed herself regally.
Brother Basil, it was like, I think she just put on the queen's clothes. You know, when you're royalty, you've got like your own sort of uniform. Like there's things that you wear that will show that that's been passed down, and it's like it shows your sort of status. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it shows that I'm queen. Does that make sense? Because you wouldn't be able to wear it without being queen, but obviously it's been passed on down by Vashti. Sorry.
Brother Basil.
Yes, Mr.
Kofi. I think it's slightly deeper than that. I think
awesome.
Her attitude changed.
Awesome. Charisma. Awesome. Her attitude changed. See, what is going on is a battle of two royalties. Ahasuerus is royalty in his own rights. Esther is royalty in her own rights. Ahasuerus did not make her queen. Esther comes from a royal bloodline. You did not know that? Yeah, it's amazing. In the text, and everybody is quiet now. In the text, we are introduced to Mordecai. How are we introduced to Mordecai? There was a Judean man in Shushan, the capital, whose name was Mordecai. And they give us 5 generations back of a lineage. Why do we care? Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Where have you heard that before? I've always told you to play that game. Where have I heard that before? Auntie Nanaya says King Saul. Bingo. When Saul is introduced, when he was going to be anointed king, in 1 Samuel 9, we are told, now there was a man of Benjamin, his name was Kish. Go back to the Esther story. Mordecai is traced all the way to Kish. He wasn't an ordinary person. Yes, Saul did not achieve the kingdom. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have royal blood. I was telling somebody, we knew at the anointment of Saul, it was difficult to accept because he wasn't from Judah. If Jacob says the scepter will not depart from Judah, why choose somebody from Benjamin when you were anointing the first king of Israel and not Judah? We will say that, well, it was temporary. That's not true. Because when Saul messed up, Samuel told him specifically, you would have been king forever, but you messed up. By the way, the next book coming out is the commentary on the book of 1 Samuel. So hopefully it should be done in November. Okay. So the text goes out of its way to trace Mordecai's lineage all the way to Kish, a Benjamite. Anyone who reads Tanakh correctly and is listening carefully to the text, you ask, where have I heard this before? Why do you tell me that? And you notice that the first king of Israel, we have the same thing. We are introduced to his father, Kish, who was a very important person, a mighty man of power. So here, it is time, that is why Mordecai says it's time to reveal. This man, he thinks is smart, but we're smarter than him. It's now time to reveal. So she puts on her royalty. She wore royalty. She wore royal clothing, but now the charisma has changed. And Ahasuerus notices that. Let's go back to the interaction here. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther clothed herself regally. She's taken her position, not as the queen of Persia, but the royal blood that comes through Shaul. And she stood in the inner court of the king's house, opposite the king's house. And the king was sitting on his royal throne in the royal palace, opposite the entrance of the house. And it came to pass when the king saw Queen Esther, he's seeing something different. The text is trying to emphasize that since until now, she's never called queen when it comes to dealings with the king. But when she put on her royalty, he sees something different. The charisma has changed. And it came to pass when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court that she won favor in his eyes. He was curious. What is going on here? And the king extended to Esther, wants to bring her back down, the golden scepter that was in his hands. Esther accepts it, no problem. We're just beginning the game. And Esther approached. He was curious because he saw something different. He saw monarchy. He saw royalty. He saw queenship. But he stretches his scepter and wants to accept her on his terms as Esther. Esther doesn't make a big deal out of it. She stretches out her hand. She approached and touched the end of the scepter. And the king said to her, "What concerns you, Queen Esther?" He's confused. He doesn't know what's going on. "And what is your petition? Even to half of the kingdom." it will be given to you. And Esther said, if it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come together, or today, to a banquet, to a party that I have prepared for him. Can you put this together? What is she doing? What is she doing here?
Esther is showing her power there. Oh
Yes.
my gosh.
Vashti has one party. Vashti invited the important women in the land. Esther accepts her current status as shown in the verse 4. But she still wants to show him that she is a person of authority. So she invites him to a party, number one, just as Vashti showed independence, having the party for the women. Okay. So too, Esther is showing the same independence here. What does she do that Vashti didn't do? She invites Haman as well. She has the power to invite the two most important leaders in Persia to her party. She's taking authority. She's making a stance. I'm going to have a party just like Vashti. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to have two parties, and I'm going to invite the two most important people in the whole of Persia, and you're going to attend. So she invites Haman as well to give her more credence and to show the king that she's a real queen who can invite the two leaders of Persia to her party. Now the scene is set for her chance to reveal all. It's like a chess game. And the king said, rush Haman to do Esther's bidding. He's still addressing her as Esther. And the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. Still Esther. And the king said to Esther during the wine banquet, what is your petition? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even half the kingdom. It shall be fulfilled. Esther wants the king to come to the terms that she is royalty, that she has authority, that she's a queen, that she's not a puppet. So since he's not gotten the gist here, she says, okay, let's have another party. I'm going to invite you again. Maybe this time you change your worldview, you change your perspective about me. If I have found favor in the king's eyes, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and to fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I will make for them. And tomorrow I will do the king's bidding. She's playing games. She wants him, especially Ahasuerus. Haman knows that she's a queen. Ahasuerus hasn't accepted that fact yet. So the king and Haman came to drink with Queen Esther. Oh. And the king said to Esther, also on the second day during the wine feast, what is your petition, Queen Esther? Something is changing. Something is clicking. And it shall be given to you. And what is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it shall be granted. And Queen Esther replied and said, if I have found favor in your eyes, O king, and if it pleases the king, may my life be given me in my petition and my people in my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. Now, had we been sold for slaves and bondwomen, I would have kept silent, for the adversary has no consideration for the king's laws. And King Ahasuerus said, and he said to Queen Esther, something is changing. Who is this, and where is he? Who dared to do this? And Esther said, an adversary and an enemy, this evil Haman. And Haman became terrified before the king and the queen. And the king arose in his fury from the wine feast to the orchard garden, and Haman stood to beg for his life of Queen Esther, for he saw that evil was determined against him by the king. Then the king returned from the orchard garden to the house of the wine feast, and Haman was fallen on the couch upon which Esther was. And the king said, will you even force the queen with me in the house? Would you even force the queen with me in the house? The word came out of the king's mouth, and it covered Haman's face. From this point on, you can check. During the rest of the scroll, the book, whenever the king addresses Esther, he calls her Hamalka, the queen, as a sign of total recognition of her position. However, because of her meekness, her modesty, her humility, when she describes her own part in the salvation of the Hebrews, she refers to herself just as Esther, to show that she was prepared to be the queen. She was prepared to be Hamalka for as long as was necessary to thwart the plan of Haman, after which her regular status returned in her own eyes. He still refers to her as Hamalka, the queen, as she is now firmly established in his eyes as the new royalty coming from the royal past, the house of Saul. You see, when they pour the oil on Saul, and we may have been confused, why Saul? If it doesn't do anything in a vacuum, could he have known that there was a time coming that we would need somebody who still had some royal blood to save his people from Haman's plot? After looking at the Megillah using this tool of keywords, looking for Hamalka, we can now answer all our original questions. Vashti is mentioned to show the power of the term Hamalka. Esther invites the king to a party to begin to assert her independence as the new queen. The use of this type of analysis, which is very key, opens up so much of the story and then the real nature of what Esther had to deal with. Questions, contributions, additions before we close.
Bye-bye.
Madam
I have
Toy.
a quick question.
Yes, madam.
That part right there when it says that he was prostate and because he went to go plead with her, he didn't try to rape her, right? He just passed out from the wine, or did he really try that?
Yeah, I think in his fright, he did not expect that. So he might have been maybe rushing to go plead, and then he tripped. But he wasn't trying to either harm her or rape her. No, he wasn't trying to do that.
Okay.
Yes. So this is what is going. This is one piece of the layer. I don't write this in the book. I make the book strictly commentary. But this is one piece of the layer, one layer of the depth of the Book of Esther, if you know how to read it correctly. There's another key phrase that shows up over and over again. I won't touch on that. But with this tool or this analysis, when you read the book, when you read the commentary, look out for certain key phrases. Look out for echoes. See, when the people are writing, or the Tanakh, the authors have in mind that you have read the other books that preceded them. So they're writing with their mindset that you've read all of Bereshit, you've read all of Shemot, you've read all of Bamidbar. Okay, you've read all of those books. So when they're writing, they would give you echoes. They will use similar phrasing, similar wordings. They would write the same oaths to take you back and analyze and say, wait a second. He's trying to point out something to me, and you have to read not from a child's perspective, but you want to read it from an adult's perspective with patience, and you see that it opens up. Okay. So if you haven't got your copies of the book, you can do that on the website. The link, if you're on YouTube, the link is in the description box. If you are on GoToMeeting, you should have received an email with a link, or it's on the website that you can get your copies. Somebody wanted to say something and I interrupted them.
I'm her rabbi.
Mother Margaret.
You know what I was thinking? You can see Yevi's hand was all over this in the very beginning of Esther being adopted by Mordecai. But also, I didn't ever knew that she was royalty. That's so amazing. Yes. That's why that whole passage had to be taken with her being Mordecai's daughter.
Correct.
He adopted her.
Yes.
But it also says 19, it says that when the maidens were gathered together at the second time, and Mordecai sat at the king's gate. Yes. The king's gate will not be just a gate you go through. He will have to have a position there.
Yes.
So he had a high position there. So Mordecai, in a way, really got to know what was happening in the palace.
Correct.
He kept his ears to the ground. So he knew exactly when he presented Esther. My God, it just blew me away. That she had to be chosen.
Correct.
He was chosen. He put it at the right time. That God, Esther, he knew that she would be chosen.
Yes.
And yeah, it's amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's why the text says she hid her lineage. Not only that she is Hebrew, but her lineage. What is so important about her lineage? Because when you trace it, it goes to Kish, the Benjamite. When you trace Saul, you see that it makes the same statement there. Kish is mentioned, and Saul is chosen as the king. So even though he's not the main king of Israel, he still had royal. Anybody who comes through Saul, even though they might not have a throne to sit on, they still have that royal blood running through their veins. So that day when it was ready, she clothed herself regally. She is this is who I am. Nobody makes anybody. We're given our gifts, we're given our positions by Yah. And nobody said, I made you. No, you did not. Yah may have used you to get me there, but it was Yah who made me. From the beginning of time. So when Yah does something and we go like, it doesn't look correct, we cannot explain it. Why Saul? Why somebody from Benjamin is supposed to be from Judah? He looks at time. He stands outside of time, looks at it, and he smiles. You don't know what you're saying. As he plans way ahead. Brother Kofi, go ahead, please.
It was me, Cynthia.
Oh, Cynthia, yes.
Well, that's what I want to just ask you about Haman.
Yes.
I mean, it just seemed like he had a real hatred for, a certain group of people, the Jews. I don't understand where the hatred's from. Who is he? Why does he have such a real dislike?
It's in the book.
I read it before. I kind of know what it is. That he's got his dad was basically from what he lost from us. But I was just wondering if there's more to it than that.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry, my spoiler. My apologies. Sorry, no, I don't mean you mean your book. No, oh, sorry, I did read it before. Oh, sorry, please get the book.
Yeah, so Haman, he's introduced to the court from nowhere. Tradition has it that he comes from Amalek, from the king of Agag. I explain. Do I explain that? I do. Yes, I do explain how that is difficult to say. And that was one of the reasons why after the book of Esther, we began the book of Samuel, because it kind of explains Saul's position when it comes to Amalek and the king of Agag. So if it's not too clear in the explanation that we gave in Esther, I think we spent a lot of time talking about Amalek and Saul, who Amalek was, and the instructions given to him to destroy Amalek. Was it all of Amalek or just a certain group of Amalek? So we answer all of that too. But it's a bit difficult to associate Haman with Amalek to Agag. It's a bit difficult, and I explain that we explain that in the book. So
thank you.
You're
welcome. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Any other contributions? Our next book is 1 Samuel. It should be done by November, and then next year, 2 Samuel, we're looking at Jonah, and then another book we'll find out. Madam Sharon wanted to say something.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat Shalom.
Everyone. Rabbi, I want to just thank you for your teachings. This has been an awesome, studying and learning from you, because it just helps us to see the purity of the scripture and how Yahweh is our God, and it is He who is determined and set forth who we are and how we should live and who we should be, and that we should seek Him. Yes. and Him only to do His will. And I just, I'm just overwhelmed, and I just wanted to say thank you for presenting these lessons to us and helping us to understand the Torah and the Tanakh in its intended way.
Amen. We thank Yah for that. We thank Yah for giving us just a little bit of His truth, unveiling just a little bit. Like He says in scriptures, He says, I am Yah, I tell the end from the beginning. What that means is before He starts anything, He goes and He establishes the end. And then He starts. So before He starts, or by the time He starts something, it means it's already finished. I learned that principle as a child, that He says, I tell the end from the beginning. Meaning that before anything begins, He's already established how it's going to end. The end is set. So when He tells you to do something, He's not telling you something you're going to reinvent. No, everything has been planned out. You walk with Him, you follow His directions, His dictates, you succeed, 100% guaranteed. Because He doesn't start something till it's finished. So everything that, when you read the commentary on Ruth and then Esther, you see that I keep going back. I'm like, this reminds us of this. Ahasuerus, when his rule reminds us of this. When he had the party, we are told about the furniture or the curtains. What does it remind us of? The temple in Jerusalem. So why is the author making the comparison? So you see echoes. They all go back. They all go back to the other texts. Most of the time, the Torah or some of the other prophets. So it's an amazing. The difficulty that we're having with the book of Samuel that we are writing now is because it's difficult to write Samuel before you write the book of Judges. Because there are a lot of things in the book of Judges that are resolved in the book of Samuel. So what we are having to do is we mention something and then we go back, we'll bring the book of Judges and say, okay, this is what it resolves. This is what it's commenting on. This is where this thing started from. Okay. So they are all interwoven. It's just being dedicated, sitting down and studying it how it's supposed to be studied. So interesting. Awesome. We'll be talking about Miriam. I decided that this morning when I woke up, supposed to be in Canada sometime in November, and I was trying to determine what we're going to present, and Miriam came into my spirit. Miriam, I'll say this and then we can close 3 minutes more. And everybody listening to me on YouTube in this class, I've said it over and over again. For the redemption that we are seeking, the redemption that we seek, those that are going to play the critical role is the feminine principle. The women are going to bring us together when it comes to the redemption. It happened in the book of Shemot. It happened all the way to the end of the Torah. The prophecy, it's in there. And it's all got to do with Miriam. If I show it to you, you would understand it. Could it be that's the reason why in our so-called community, we've put the women in the back seat? That we are oppressing them because the enemy knows something that we don't know. Study the Torah carefully, and you will see that the redemption out of Egypt, the redemption that sustained them till they got to the land, had to do with Miriam. And if Yah permits, I will share that in Canada in November. I'll leave it at that.
Well, brother, sorry. Why did you do that? I was just like, like seriously, like November. Do you know how long that is?
Exactly, Cynthia. Yes, I was just gonna say the same thing. You have no idea. I've been dealing with this all week, and I'm so glad that you said that. I want to scream out and cry that our brothers are not understanding this, and I'm having girls come to me and telling me that they're getting pregnant, and it's just killing me that they don't understand how important. It's so important, and I don't need to say again. The men are not getting it, especially the younger men. They're not getting it, and they're putting these girls, pushing them away, and it's just killing me.
Yeah, and you see, it's like I've always said, there's a difference reading Torah, Tanakh, and reading it as a story. But it's instructions. It's full of prophecy. It's giving us answers. It's telling us how to get out of the oppression, the redemption. You don't have to reinvent the wheel if you understand how to read the book. It's loaded with what is going to happen in the end of days and how it's going to play out. And if you read it with that sensitivity, you will begin to see a lot of stuff. Okay. You see, that's why it breaks my heart. That's why, if you've noticed, ever since I came, or I decided to come on the public scene, most of my webinars have been for women. We have to prepare the women because they play a key role. Yeshua made a statement, a parable. He said the kingdom of God is like yeast that a woman put in dough. How do you influence things? How do you change things? Not from the outside, not by shouting. Yeast is quiet. Yeast is what? Nothing. You put it in the dough and let it sit and it starts to rise. That is how you change things. That's how. And the women operate that way. That is the feminine and the feminine energy. They change things from within. That is why the family is given to them. Because we say, if the mother is Hebrew, if the mother has these principles, if the mother has been taught the ways of Torah, the kids are set. So I will show you. It's right. When I show you Miriam, you see it. It's right there. That is why Moshe, when Miriam got the leprosy, Moshe said, we're not going to move an inch. We'll wait for Miriam for 7 days. That's how critical she was. The whole Israel, we're not moving an inch. We wait for Miriam for 7 days. Now, I know November, people say November is long, but it's not too long. But examine Miriam. Read her story. She doesn't appear that much in the text, but she does. Depends on what you know from Shemot, chapters 1. And then you follow that theme all across. And you go like, bingo, there it is.
I'm already going through it in my head, Brother Basil, because I remember, like when you said it, my mind just started going to the scriptures and thinking about how the fact that she was one that stayed behind and waited to see what happened with Moses, and she was one that, you know, stepped up and said, oh, I can get someone to look after him for you. You know, there's so many things in there that are very critical.
Yes, very critical.
They are so critical because she wasn't there and she didn't make that move. And she allowed herself to be intimidated by the Pharaoh's the princess. Moses wouldn't be alive, but you know, there's a lot of things that happened. And when you said that now, I'm excited to go and dig some more. But thank you. I might bring up every so often because November is not like, you know, I might get a bit too excited, but yeah, I'll let it go now. But yeah.
Yes. So somebody just wrote here something beautifully. She says, when you approach the men, put on your regal garments. Yes. Women have the power of influence. Use that. That is how we're going to get out of this. Influence. Not shouting. You can shout all day long. Influence. Like yeast.
Hi, Rabbi.
Mother Margaret.
I just wanted to say something quickly. I was looking at that piece you did, Into the Deep.
Yes.
And one thing you mentioned that has very resonated with me, it says, to be ignorant of the truth is to reject freedom.
Yes.
He said, search for me and you will find me. Nothing is yours till you move.
Okay.
And that has resonated with me. And what I do, I'm just a born woman. I find myself, I thought of an idea of how to reach the young men, particularly the young men, and older men too, because I'm not a person, I'm tooting my own horn. I am not intimidated by really anyone. I don't really care what you look like. I don't care if you have the biggest suit, the biggest briefcase in your hand. I'm not intimidated I'm not intimidated with men. With men doesn't intimidate me. So what I do on the mornings, on the subway, I go up to the guys, the young men, some of the women too, and you'll be amazed to see how people respond. I wake up there, I say, good morning, how are you, brother? And I put on my hand, and they shake my hand. And it's amazing to see what the sense of touch can do. And I'm just here to say, hi, you know, have a great day, you know? And I've been young men, older women, younger women. It's amazing what touch can do. But I only go to my people. Yeah. And I remember, was it a couple of weeks ago, I went to this young man. He was about 24 years old. I said, how old are you, 24? And I spoke to him. I told him, you know, where he was from. He didn't even know he was Israelite. And we just had a nice chat. You know, I put my hand out and I said, you know, I really love you, you know. And he looked me right in the eyes and he said to me, I understand. So I turn around, this gentleman, gorgeous man, by the way, Rabbi, He took his earphones off.
Yes.
And he walking towards them, and he put his hand out. And I said, "Hi, brother, how are you?" And he said, "I'm good." I said, "Have a wonderful day." He said, "Thank you, sister." So there's little ways as women we can touch men too. It's not about putting all this clothing. It's all up to the attitude and being humble and being, because people see kindness and people see you, who you are when you walk towards them. I don't think it's not about just random and start reading the word and say, "God said, la la la." Sometimes people just need a touch.
Correct.
And that's what I've been doing. And it's been working.
Awesome.
So just putting it out there. As women, we need to reach the men too. It's not just about we know that this and that and that. Just a little bit. If each of us do it, it will bring us a long way. Because my daughter said to me, "Mom, why are you doing that? They're just strange people. So then they think you're begging. Mom, you're not afraid?" I said, "No. I cover myself with I pray first before I do that, and I bless my hands in the name of Yahweh before I reach out my hands to people." And I even bring a little bottle of sanitizer. If people don't want to touch my hand, I said, "There's sanitizer, you can wash your hands, no problem." And most people, everybody has rejected the sanitizer. They go, "No, we don't need it." So it just, we just need to do something.
Do something, yes. Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
8:11 says that Yahweh gave the word. Great was the company of those who proclaimed it. That word company is a female word.
Nice.
And that's why we women are always drawn to learning more of Torah, learning more of the scripture. And when you proclaim something, it's not just about shouting and speaking loud. It's also you are making what needs to be known available to who needs to know it.
Correct.
Like how they would put something on the door somewhere where everybody's passing, that everybody can see it. And so to the one sister, be encouraged. That's why you're here learning everything you're learning, because then we are going to proclaim it. We are going to make it available and give access to those who need to know it.
Amen. Amen.
That's all I wanted to say.
Awesome. That's why those who haven't seen or heard copies of our women webinars, I think, was it Miss Messiah or Miss Messiah 2, when I said that when Moshe, is it not interesting, when Moshe goes up the mountain to bring the Torah, Yah tells him, "I want you to teach the women first." And then he said the man, because he's trying to build a nation. He started from home. Someone asked me, "When do you start learning Torah?" I say, your mom starts teaching you the moment you enter her womb. That's when you start learning Torah. It never stops. Your mother is your first moreh, your first rabbi, your first teacher. It's always the woman. Because she doesn't take care of you when you arrive. Even during your creation process, anything that she conceives in her thought, music that she listens to, things that she reads, everything, her feelings, go together to create that human being. Actually, saying that, we would look at a very classic example of that in 20 minutes in our class. Genesis 17. You will see how the name Isaac came about. Amazing. All our experiences create a human. All our experiences. That's why where I come from, we respect pregnant women. When you see a woman who is pregnant, you respect her, because we have this belief. If you do something to her and she speaks against you whilst pregnant, you're in trouble. If it's a curse, if it's something negative, oh boy, you're in big trouble. Because she's in a process. She's like a portal. She from that 9 months is like a portal that is connected from the physical to the spiritual. She has that connectivity because she's doing her part. Yah is also doing her part. So that when she speaks from that depth, When it's a blessing, awesome. When it's something negative, it sticks. But enough of the esoteric stuff. Let's come back to the book. So, thank you. I think we have 20 minutes to start our Shabbat class. Thank you so much, the viewers on YouTube. Get copies of the book. If you do get a copy and you finish reading it, shoot me an email. Let me know what you think. And we'll come back on here. Maybe we'll come back later today. Genesis 17 is what we're going to tackle in our Shabbat class. If you're not part of us and you want to join us, let's go to the website, kingdomofkings.org. The link is where you're going to get the book if you go on the website. And then look around, subscribe. We have promotions going on now. So if you want to join us, if you want to, we're not forcing you. If you want to study Torah with us, if you like how we teach it, it's not for everybody. Everybody has their teacher. Everybody has who they gravitate to. If this is for you, join us. Now, if it's not for you, we're always happy that you listen to us. Find a Torah studying place and learn almost every week, at least once a week. Some place that you can learn. You can learn from a moreh, rabbi, teacher, whatever the person chooses to call themselves. Okay. So may Yah bless you all. May Yah keep you. May He shine His face upon you. May He give you Shalom. Peace. Be back in 20 minutes for our Shabbat class. Scholars.
אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח. אני מאמין ואף על פי שהתמהמה עם כל